Let's see. Are we working? All right, looks like it. Hello. Thank you so much for joining me. All right, we are getting going here. We are getting it going. Awesome. All right. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Will Johnson. My website is called uniteamericafirst.com. Uniteamericafirst.com. And I started that website thinking that I could, possibly, big dream, that I could unite America first, right? Because I was thinking, the country's so divided, I need to try to do something. But this entire time of me trying to attempt to do this, I come to realize that those on the left, they don't want a United States of America. They want a socialist communist America. They want their liberal utopia. So this whole uniting America, if the Democrats get their way, it would become a pipe dream. We will tell our grandchildren, I remember when America used to go by the United States of America. That could literally happen. I don't want it to happen, but the Democrats, because they've already expressed how much they hate this country, how much they hate this nation. They've already expressed it. We've already seen it. We already know it. They've expressed it overwhelmingly by them burning the American flag, by them wanting to do away with the Constitution, by them wanting to get rid of the Electoral College, by them wanting to get rid of filibuster and stack the courts. All of that leads to communism, 100%. All right, let's get on with it. So, I can't help but talk about this story. And it's just, it's new information coming out about it every single day. But you have to give it to the left. They have been sticking with the whole, I would say, let me see how to say this. They've been sticking with this whole narrative the entire time. And I'm talking about Paul. Once again, I'm talking about Paul. Paul, San Francisco Paul. So Paul, right? I've yet to hear, have we got any statements, anything else from Paul? What about Nancy? Has Nancy said anything? And I was just sitting there earlier today thinking, I'm like, you know what, Nancy, I'm talking to my producer, and she brought up the point and said, you know what, Nancy hasn't said anything. She hasn't gone before the cameras or anything, gone before reporters, nothing, unless y'all have seen it and I just missed it. Because I know if she says something, it'll be all over Twitter, at least, right? It'll be all over social media, but I haven't seen anything. And I told her, I said, I'm willing to bet that she's not going to say anything because we're only days out. And she doesn't want to have to answer any questions about this because it's probably going to hurt them more than help them. So she's just doing like the rest of the liberal media when they get exposed for doing something completely corrupt. They just ignore it. But you know what? This story is not going away. And let me be clear about something. I wasn't there, but the way the liberal media is spinning this and the way the Democrats are spinning this, there's so many open-ended questions about this. There's so many. Let me get with the first thing here. The first thing is that the Attorney General in San Francisco is wanting to do away with the cashless bail and keep him in jail. And if you ask me, the reason why they're wanting to do this is so they can silence him. I've been talking about this pretty much all day long. I talked about it on my audio podcast. I talked about it on my nightly show on Lindell TV. I've talked about it pretty much all day long. I want to talk about it again here. For those of you that have not seen this yet, listen to what the Attorney General says. Because, the first thing I've been saying is, so when is he going to get out on the cashless bail, right? What's so special about him? But listen to what the Attorney General says here. Listen.
As for next steps, the defendant is expected to be arraigned tomorrow afternoon. My office will be filing a motion to detain him without bail, and that is based on what is obvious and severe public safety risks that the defendant poses to San Francisco as well as the outer community.
Okay, my question is, What about all the other hardened criminals? How come you didn't do the same thing with them? You know, the same ones that committed a crime, then got back out because of the cashier's bail, then end up murdering someone or robbing somebody or assaulting somebody. How come they don't get the same treatment? Why are you holding him in? And I'm telling you why. Because they want to silence him. You can't have him out there talking with a few days left because they're politicizing this. All they have to do is to say this was a rogue, guy that out of the blue, invaded the home and we're dealing with it and dropped it from there. They didn't have to go on with this whole elaborate lie trying to say that, oh my goodness, he was attacked because of Trump. They're literally saying this. They're literally suggesting this. Let me share something with you. Have you ever seen this woman on MSDNC? Listen to what she says, because what their whole agenda is they're trying to drum up anger in the left so they can go out and be violent. I tell you, I said it before. Y'all need to brace for impact. The Democrats, they're calling for violence, just like they did under President Trump in 2016. They called for violence. This time they're openly calling for the violence. But listen to how she spins this. Listen how she spins the whole Paul in San Francisco ordeal. Listen how she spins this. It's like you really can't make this stuff up.
A review of David DePape's online accounts shows he was part of a far-right world of hate, anti-Semitism, and conspiracy theories involving anti-vax hysteria and voter fraud, and many of his posts published in the past few months. But don't look at that. Ignore the fact that these right-wing screeds line up with the biggest lies propagated by Trump and Trumpists. He was deranged, after all. I mean, just isolated. Never mind.
He was deranged, after all, not just isolated. Really? Really? You see this? Already blaming Trump. Trump has nothing to do with this. Again, if you ask me, and it's just my opinion, because I wasn't there, I don't know, because there's so many unanswered questions here, because the police officers still will not say who answered the door when they went to the door and knocked on it. They won't say. They didn't have to bust in the door to save Paul. They didn't. So who came to the door? And of course, the liberal media, they're ignoring it because they don't want you to talk about it either. But it's all been out there. Oh. And you've heard of this leftist leaning group called Politico. Have y'all ever heard of them? It's called Politico. Well, and they do a lot of fake check. They do a lot of fake fact checking is what they call it, fact checkers. A lot of the left-leaning socialist media outlets use Politico. Well, originally, Politico put a statement out there that there was a third person there. Politico has since removed it. The question is, why did Politico remove it? Why?
The fact that cult leaders and fascists prey first on the weakest, most vulnerable among us. In short, deranged people. That they inspire with hate and hardwire for violence against their enemies. But ignore all of that, say Republicans. After all,
really? Say Republicans? They're the ones who embrace the violence. Remember the Summer of Love? Remember? They embraced the violence. They actually were encouraging people to be violent. They did the same thing in 2016. They were encouraging people to be violent. The Summer of Love, it resulted in over $1 billion in insurance policies because of all the stuff that was burnt down and damaged. And she's literally sitting there trying to suggest that as conservatives, that's the ones that want to be violent. They're setting the stage, people. You need to brace for impact. I'm telling you, they're setting the stage right now for when if they don't get what they want, they're wanting people to be violent in the streets.
This political attack was just another example of rampant random crime.
When you let dangerous criminals out on the streets, with bail and not put them in prison, You're just asking for this sort of incident to happen. And I think it created the environment where this happens.
So it's a convergence here of what has been political violence we've witnessed, the rise of just crime on our streets and our subways.
We all need to recognize violence is up across the board. I think the other thing to remember is if this weren't Paul Pelosi, this criminal would probably be out on the street tomorrow.
Other Republicans found this tragedy of an 82-year-old grandfather getting his brains bashed in with a hammer.
You see an 82-year-old grandfather, right? You see how they have to introduce that 82-year-old grandfather like they're attacking the elderly. Oh my goodness, they're attacking the elderly. You see how they're doing this? See how they're spinning this? Well, what about the old guy that got attacked for simply wearing a MAGA hat? Where are you on that? They said nothing about it. He was an old guy too. They said nothing. Nothing at all.
Political punchline, like Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, who saw the attempted murder of Paul Pelosi as a good opening line. Take a listen.
Speaker Pelosi's husband, they had a break-in last night in their house, and he was assaulted. There's no room for violence anywhere.
You hear that? He said there's no room for violence anywhere. He's not even telling a joke. Right? Because conservative Christians don't want violence. We don't. Well, there's some that's, calling for it. But for the most part, Christians, conservatives, we don't want violence, because if we did, you would have seen a lot more violence than they keep suggesting. Right? We don't want violence. But listen, y'all need to listen to what she says when we come back to her. Look.
But we're going to send her back to be with him in California.
But there's no room for violence.
There's no room for violence. There's no room for violence. Like she's chalking it off, like she's trying to say that he's telling a joke about that. He's not telling a joke. He wasn't even telling a joke. He was serious. There is no room for violence, but the left, they don't have any issues with the violence. Now listen to what she says here, how she tried to spin it.
When asked about his one-liner, Youngkin's spokesperson said, quote, as the governor clearly said, the assault on Paul Pelosi was wrong and there's no place for violence. He wishes him a full recovery and is keeping the Pelosi family in his prayers. Youngkin's team called the concern that the governor was joking about violence a, quote, mischaracterization.
It is 100%. But see, that's what the left, that's what they do. They take something and they'll twist it and try to put it into their narrative.
When not making jokes about the attack, other Trumpists were spreading lies about it to make you look away.
Really? To make you look away? They're saying that they're spreading the lies to make you look away. Well, no one's looking away. Everybody's looking at this story. Everybody's looking at it. Right? And they're still trying to put it out there that this guy, David, was a right winger. You just heard her. She's trying to say that the right wing radicalized him. What in the world? Listen to what Tucker said about him.
The unsurprising thing about David DePappy, he's also an illegal alien. Today, Fox's Bill Melugin learned that DePappy, who is originally from Canada, has long overstayed his visa, so he is currently in this country illegally. So to restate, the perpetrator in this violent crime against Paul Pelosi is a mentally ill, drug-addicted, illegal alien nudist who takes hallucinogens and lives in a hippie school bus in Berkeley with a BLM banner and a pride flag out front. So take those uncontested facts and let them rattle around your brain for a moment until a recognizable pattern emerges. What does this sound like to you? If you guessed, this is obviously a textbook case of homegrown right-wing extremism, well, then obviously you've been watching a lot of cable news today. Here's a selection.
Yeah, obviously you've been watching a lot of cable news if you believe that he's a right-winger. He has BLM on his short bus that he's in. He has the Elemental P community on his bus, right? Everything about him was wokeism, and there's rumors allegedly that he's a stripper, a nudist, right? I'm pretty sure y'all have heard that. He's a nudist. He's been pushing all of this, he's been doing all these extra activities. Personally, on a personal note, without me being there, and I'm being straight up, it's just a personal opinion here. All this is a personal opinion. I think personally, it was a love triangle that went bad. It went wrong. They're in San Francisco. Won't they just own up to it? I mean, they embrace the lifestyle like that anyways. Why are they in so much denial about it? Think about what I'm saying. We're talking about San Francisco, right? Nancy Pelosi, all of them, it's a thing in San Francisco. Not just San Francisco, it's happening, across the planet. But San Francisco is like the hub for it. So why are they not just embracing what it possibly might have been, Why? Because they want to spin it. They want people to think it's something else. All right. I have this video that I want to share with you one more time because it's for obvious reasons here. This is the governor of New York. And she's literally saying that all the violence that we're seeing across the country and even in her state is all made up by Republicans. We're making it all up as if we want the violence. And it all goes right along with what they were talking about with in San Francisco with Paul, right? Same thing there. They're saying that we're inciting violence by talking about the violence that the left is doing, by doing the cashless bails, by defunding the police officers. What do you think would happen? See, the left, they'll do these things and never take in consideration or think about the consequences of their actions. Defunding the police, you're going to have more crime. Cashless bails, you're going to have more crime. Who's pushing for those things? Defunding the police and the cashless bail. It's the Democrats. They're the ones pushing for it. Now, there's a reason why I want to play this short clip for you again, because I have another video that I want to show you that came out of New York. But let's listen to what she says here, just here in the beginning.
Reverend, these are master manipulators. They have this conspiracy going all across America to try and convince people that in democratic states they're not as safe. Well, guess what? They're also not only election deniers, they're data deniers. The data shows that shootings and murders are down in our state by 15%, even in New York City.
Okay, so she's talking about shootings and murders, shooting people, killing them with the gun is down. Right. But you notice she didn't bring up stabbings with the knife, stabbings with screwdrivers, assaulting people on the subway, pushing people off into the tracks on the subway, just beating people down to a pulp in the subway. This crime is escalating like no tomorrow. But they want to focus on guns. That's their focus. They want to focus on guns. Right now, remember, she said that about New York, the crime is actually down. So don't believe what you see.
With a makeshift memorial growing larger in New York City's Chinatown tonight, outrage over Christina Unalee's death is mounting.
It could have been any one of us.
This chilling surveillance video appears to show the 35-year-old secretly stalked by a man early Sunday morning. Police say he then stabbed her at least 40 times inside her own apartment.
I didn't kill nobody.
Osama Nash is now charged with Unalee's murder. This was his 8th arrest since May of last year. He was out on supervised release. The case is now bringing scrutiny to the city's bail system.
This is a horrific murder of someone who was in the prime of her life.
Should the suspect have been on the streets?
No.
2 years ago, Democratic lawmakers here passed bail reform, which requires judges release defendants before trial for all but the most serious crimes. Supporters say it promotes alternatives to incarceration for people who can't afford bail.
An alternative for people who can't afford bail. Well, the thing is, my opinion, if you can't afford the bail, then maybe you shouldn't do the crime, right? Where's the deterrent at? Where's the objective to say, hey, if you get caught doing this crime, you're going to go to jail and you're going to have to pay bail to get out? What happened to that? I mean, to my understanding, the game of Monopoly, if you don't pay the bail, if you don't have a get out of jail free card, you still have to pay. Some games you have to pay to get out. You have to pay to get out of the jail on Monopoly. Or you serve your time. I think it's 3 times around the board. Serve your time. I mean, it's just ridiculous. In the real world, they're allowing these criminals back out onto the street. And then these criminals go back out onto the street and they commit horrific crimes. And then they want you to ignore it in a few days from now. Don't pay attention to what's happening in our country. Don't pay attention when you go to the gas pump. Don't pay attention what's happening on our border. Don't pay attention to the endless spending. We're at $31 trillion right now. Don't pay attention to the food crisis that's happening. Don't pay attention to the formula not being on the shelves. Don't pay attention to they created this energy crisis. Don't pay attention to any of it. Don't pay attention that this leftist federal government coming after you as a parent. Don't pay attention to any of that. Don't pay attention to how they destroyed this country. They don't want you to pay attention to it. They want you to look the other way and just support them. Now, as I was telling you, they're actually calling for violence, and they're doing it like in a subliminal way. They're calling for the violence. Listen to Rachel Madcow. Her actual name is Rachel Maddow, but I have a nickname for her, Rachel Madcow, and I didn't make it up. But listen to what she's saying here, because they're literally advocating for violence. And you know what? She's literally going to tell you that Republicans don't want elections any longer. I'm like, where are you getting this from? Who said this? Who said that? She's just mouthing it off. If I didn't hear it, I'd be like, okay, that's just a little too far. If I didn't hear her actually say it, then I'd be like, that might not be true. But it is true.
In this election, a clear majority of Republican candidates for congressional and statewide offices say election results should no longer count. They do not believe in election results. Even below that level, in state legislative races, look, clear majorities of Republican candidates in those races in the swing states, they say election results shouldn't count. They don't believe them. We shouldn't use elections anymore. If they do not want us to have elections anymore, don't kid yourself that there is another good option. It is democracy or it's not. And if it's not...
Listen to this. Listen to this.
It's violence and force.
It's violence and force. Really? Really? So if they don't get what they want, that's what I'm hearing, that it's going to be violence and force. And see, they put these messages out there. And they're constantly lying, talking about it's the MAGA Republicans, it's those the right wingers that's calling for violence and doing the violence. But yet they can't produce any videos of it. They take memes and then they construe them and then they twist it up to push a certain narrative. They do it all the time. They do it all the time. Same thing like when President Trump said that they're sending the worst over here. Talking about Mexico, the Mexican government, sending their worst over here. They're not sending the doctors. They're not sending the lawyers. They're not sending the teachers. They're sending the drug dealers and the murderers. Even out of Venezuela, they emptied the prison cell of all the hardened criminals and sent them to the southern border of the United States of America so they can come in our country. That's what President Trump was referring to. And they know it, but they take it and they twist it. They do it all the time.
This is the year. This is the election when your vote.
Now, listen to this, because this just really takes the cake.
Up and down to the very bottom of the ballot is an answer to this one question. Is it democracy or is it force and violence? Our vote this year is about whether we ever get to vote again. This is not the year to sit out.
You hear this? She said, will you ever... She's basically saying that unless you go along with their demonic, sinister ways, that you will never, ever get the vote. That is a total lie. No Republican is calling for that. Not a single one. If that was the case, then why are Republicans even getting involved? Why are they even running for political office? Why are they running for political office? And again, I'm telling everybody, y'all need to brace for impact, because I see the tea leaves. I see the writing on the wall. I see what they're gearing up to do. They don't, every single time when these tyrants don't get what they want, they act like little tyrants and they go out and they destroy stuff because they don't get what they want. They don't get what they want. Y'all remember this? You remember this? Imagine if this was the other way around. You remember this?
And the donor class can't just sit back on the sidelines and say, oh, well, don't worry, this will all work itself out. They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump. And that's a fact. And
y'all remember that? My question is, where's the FBI? Did the FBI ever question him for saying that? Did the FBI ever pick him up for saying that? Did they? If they didn't, they need to, right? But for some reason, when it's the left that's calling for violence and talking about actually violence against somebody, they get silent. They grow amnesia about what the law is, right? They're 100% biased, 100%. They're only for the left. And again, I'm trying to show you. It's not even trying. I'm actually showing you. This next clip here confirms everything that I've been saying about how they're literally lying about all of us on the right and how we're being violent. Every single time I've done videos, you've never, ever heard me call for violence. You've never heard it. I've never said it. And I still won't say it. I'm not going to, because I believe in what the word says. I believe in God's word. I believe in it wholeheartedly. More than anything else on the planet, I believe God's word. And God is not calling for us to be violent. He's not calling for us. God, Jesus set the example on how we should be with one another. Even those that crucified him, he showed us how we should be with one another. And it takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot of strength to do otherwise. To do what Christ did, it takes strength that we can never comprehend. Now, listen to this. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I know you can't stand either one of them, but listen to what they're saying, because this is the narrative that they're pushing. And this is why I'm constantly telling everybody, and I said it before, that y'all need to brace for impact, because it is coming. It is coming. Listen to this.
Well, I think your question kind of answers itself, Joy. There's always been a streak of violence, of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, as you said. But I think what we're seeing today, and it has certainly been thrown into very high relief by the horrific attack on Paul Pelosi, is not just an aberration where one or two people or a small group engage in that kind of violent rhetoric and urge people to take action against political figures.
So can I get a list of who's actually called for violence against political figures? What about Chuck Schumer against the Supreme Court? Brett Kavanaugh, you're going to see the whirlwind. Remember that? The guy just played, wanted to put a bullet in President Trump. What about Mad Maxine Waters? Saying confront them wherever they are, get in their face, make them uncomfortable, attack them. Remember Mad Maxine Waters? You remember that? Have we forgotten already? But she's suggesting that it's people on the right that's advocating for people to go out and be violent to someone. No one has done that. There's no audio of it. There's no video of it. I can't even find any documentation on it. But she's on here lying through her lying mouth, trying to convince everybody that will believe this stupidity that is conservatives, Republicans doing it. You can't make this stuff up.
Like her, like me, like others. We're seeing a whole political party, and those who support it, those who enable it, those who run under its banner, engaging in behavior that is so dangerous and I find, frankly, disqualifying for people who are running for office.
You see this? So they're just drumming up nonsense, and she's trying to say they should be disqualified. So basically, unless you agree to go along with the Democrat ideology, unless you agree to regurgitate all of the lies that they are saying, you should be disqualified, because there's no Republicans out there running for a campaign right now, none of them, that's calling for violence against another American citizen. None of them. None of them. Not a single one. Because if they were doing that, they would show the video. But see, she's just mouthing off. She's mouthing it off.
This midterm election, we've seen a lot of ads by Republicans running for everything, touting crime. Crime is the issue. But when an 82-year-old man is attacked by an intruder in his own home, they don't seem to be too bothered by that.
Okay, wait a minute. Every Republican that I've seen that talked about it said that they never condone attack of an older person. David, right? Which they have already, there's been audio come out saying that Paul called David a friend on the 911 call. Called him a friend. David's a friend. He, friend with friends benefits. Again, she's lying, and they're trying to talk about an old man at 81 like he's helpless, right? Like he's helpless.
Because that person is married to the Speaker of the House, who's of a different political party. I just want your viewers, and really I would like every American, just to stop and think about that. This is the kind of violent rhetoric that leads to violent action, that props up authoritarians, and that's unfortunately what we see the Republican Party today supporting.
What? The reason why they're doing this is because they want to get everybody at the mindset that it would be okay to be violent towards Republicans. What about the guy not too long ago here recently that ran down the young white male and killed him, and then he was out on bail? Cashless bail. He was just out on cashless bail. And the reason why he did it, because he thought he was a MAGA Republican. Didn't even know the kid. He was a young man, didn't even know him, and ran him down because he thought he was a white MAGA Republican. What put it in the mind of him to run that young man down? Who put it in his mind? Was it the right-wing extremists that put it in his mind to run him down? No. It's because of the rhetoric coming out of the left. See, these people are Satanists. They're 100% Satanists, and they want everyone to believe the lies that they're telling. You can't, it's just remarkable, the blatant lies. And it's almost like the more they lie, the more it reveals itself. It's just out in the open. It's like they don't even care that you know that they're lying. They only want to get the people who's willing to believe the lie. They can care less about you that know the truth. They don't care. They're not even trying to get to you. They're not even trying to reach you. They're trying to reach the people who are too lazy to do any kind of research. That's who they're going for. But let me show you, this was kind of surprising to me. Don Sourpuss Lemon, he got his show canceled. I guess that's why he doesn't have a tie on. But he got his show canceled, and he's asking Fetterman about his mental state. Well, your doctor released the information. Don Sourpuss asking this question, and they've been asking it over and over and over again. Listen to this.
Listen, we've heard a little from your doctor, but we haven't heard a lot. You're asking voters to trust you on your word that your health is good without the full story. So in the interest of full transparency for the voters, do you think it would help if you let your doctors brief the press before election night?
Well, I think we've been pretty transparent. We've had our doctors just be very clear that they're here, that we're able to and fit to serve. And from my point, we've also been very transparent in terms of showing up at a debate, and very transparent about having events in front of thousands and thousands of Pennsylvanians for months. And I was, again, it was no secret that I was going to miss some words. I was going to mush some words together. And as we've been very clear in the debate and during this interview, I've been using captioning as well. True, I believe we've been pretty transparent to give all the voters to make it their choice.
Okay. He shouldn't be running. I'm going to be straight up. He should not be running. When you're having mental issues like this, your mental capacity is not up to par. You're talking about being in the office that's over the United States of America, right? Congress. He's talking about being in Congress. We want people who are sharp. We want people who can think on their feet immediately, not needing a teleprompter to tell them what to say. When asked the question, dude needs help. They're doing this to him because they can control him, because they just want his butt in the seat. They'll vote. They'll tell him how to vote. He'll just be riding along. He won't even have to do anything. But listen to Don Sourpuss Lemon, because he doesn't let it go. Maybe Don Sourpuss Lemon is starting to maybe figure it out a little bit. I'd highly doubt it, but I'm just saying. But listen to this. Listen to this. And again, Fetterman is having a problem answering the question.
Listen, I'm asking the question for the voters, because then voters may wonder, is there a reason that you don't want your doctors to take questions? That's why I keep asking this.
That's why he keeps asking. And
no, I just believe that we have our doctors just weigh in on that, and they believe that I'm fit to.
I mean, really? I mean, it's pretty sad. It actually is. It's pretty sad. It's 100% sad. Now, one of the things he was asked was about what would be his first thing he would do, permitting that he wins. What would he would like to do? What would be like the first thing he would like to do?
If you do win, what is your top priority in the Senate? What would be the first bill of yours that you'd want to get passed, sir?
Oh, you know, there's a lot of things that I think are important, but I'm much more focused on just running through the tape, you know, over the next 8 days. I've been running on things that are always going to come down on the side of working families here in Pennsylvania. There's just a lot of great choices, but to me, it's about, you know, making sure we run through the end of the last 8 days.
Really? Because that's not what he said here. Because he said something completely different here. And thank you to Fox News for pointing this out.
If you had a magic wand and you could wave it and fix one thing, what would it be?
Life without parole in Pennsylvania. We could save billions in revenue long term. We could save thousands of lives and not make anyone less safe.
And not make anyone less safe. So they let these hardened criminals out onto the streets, and then guess what? People are murdered as a result of it. People are attacked as a result of it. People are attacked as a result of it. It's disgusting. It's 100% repulsive. I can't even imagine the mindset of these people. I really can't. And for me, when I look at this, because they're out there blatantly lying to every single person that's willing to hear it, it makes me think about the last days, right? It's almost like we're watching a movie. We see the people, they're actually lying to us, and they want us to believe what they're telling us. And we know that they're lying, and they don't care. What does the Bible say when they lie like this? The truth is not in them. The truth is not in them. What does it say about people when the truth is not in them? It's like they can't even help themselves. It's like they're so caught up in the moment. They're so caught up in lying to everybody. They feel that, hey, lying works. Tell the lie, because it's maybe this is what it's like. Maybe they're saying tell the lie, because if we can tell the lie to get the agenda that we want, then it's perfectly fine. Then it's really not a lie. You know, because they come back and they'll constantly say, well, that's your truth. It's your truth. Like 2 + 2 = 4, but that's your truth. Listen to this with Tucker.
So everybody feels, obviously, pain thinking of an 82-year-old man being hit with a hammer. It's like the worst thing imaginable. Well, it's quite common now. But why should the rest of us sit here and accept obvious inconsistencies in a story that has public policy implications and not say anything?
We obviously shouldn't, and I think this is the most important point about all of this, which is how many millions of people have been conditioned to believe that it's immoral or even some kind of reflection of mental illness, like you're a conspiracy theorist, if you don't immediately and unquestionably accept whatever story is told to you by institutions of authority. And the amazing thing about that, Tucker, is that this framework is being constructed by journalists, people whose primary purpose in life is supposed to be to question and challenge the claims of the powerful, and instead they're demonizing anybody who does so. Skepticism itself can never be wrong. Skepticism says there's evidentiary holes and there's faulty reasoning in what we're being told. Even if evidence does emerge later on to prove it, the skepticism itself was not just valid but necessary.
So Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. The Russians blew up their own pipeline. Julian Assange is a criminal. I mean, maybe we're in the habit of just accepting the most ludicrous possible claims and moving on to the next thing. It feels like where we are.
And that's exactly where we are. And the left, again, and if you don't believe what they're telling you, then they say that you're a conspiracy. You're a conspiracist. Oh my goodness, you're a conspiracist. You're not believing what I'm telling you. You're a conspiracist. And they've been lying.
Russia, Russia, Russia.
Y'all remember that?
Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia.
But if you didn't believe it, you're a conspiracist.
Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia,
you
Russia,
remember
Russia.
it?
Russia,
over
Russia,
and
Russia.
over.
Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia, Russia,
I mean, it
Russia.
was every single day.
Russia, Russia, Russia.
But if you didn't believe it, you were the conspiracist. And come to find out, it was a total lie. By the witch that I just played a minute ago, Hillary Rodham Clinton literally lied. The whole fake dossier, which they all want to ignore, the corruption. And they want to ignore it like it didn't even happen that way. They want people to believe that, hey, it was legit. It really did happen. That's what they want people to believe. They want people to believe that. All right, let me get out of here. Let me say thank you. I don't know if my producer's up tonight again. I don't know if she's here or not, but maybe not. See, she has a way where she's going to see it, but I can't see the information. So, but anyways, hey, everybody, thank you so much for all the blessings. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for not being afraid to share this video. Thank you so much. We're only just days away now, and I know people are sitting on the edge of their seat, just being days away. We cannot forget who's in control. We cannot forget that Christ is in control. We can't forget that. No matter what happens. Because see, at the end of all of this, and I'm not talking about this in a couple of days from now, I'm talking about the end of everything as we know it. Christ has already won the battle. We just need to remember that and hang on to it. God bless. Reality check.